cerebrum has suffered massive and irreparable damage.
You'll never know what has happened to him.
Had I not been sure of this, I would not have permitted him to live.
Where?
Father?
What happened?
I need help.
What is democracy? What is democracy?
Got something to do with young men killing each other, I believe.
When it comes my turn, will you want me to go?
For democracy, any man would give his only begotten son.
It is impossible for a decerebrated individual to experience pain, pleasure, memory, dreams, or thought of any kind. This young man will be as unfeeling, as unthinking as the dead until the day he joins them.
I don't know whether I'm alive and dreaming or dead and remembering. How can you tell what's a dream and what's real when you can't even tell when you're awake and when you're asleep? Where am I?
I can't remember anything. Can't tell if this is true or a dream. Deep down inside I feel the scream. This terrible silence stops in me. Now that the war is through with me, I'm waking up, I cannot see that there's not much left of me. Nothing is real but pain now. Hold my breath as I wish for death. Oh please God, wake me.
I just went ahead and chopped off everything. Oh God, please make them hear me. They won't listen. They won't hear me.
You don't wake me up, I'll be like this for years.
Hear me.
Back in the womb, it's much too real. In pumps life that I must feel, but can't look forward to reveal. Look to the time when I live, fed to the tube that sticks in me, just like a wartime novelty, tied to machines that make me be. Cut this life off from me. Hold my breath as I wish for death. Oh please God, wake me.
It's like a piece of meat that keeps on living. It won't always be like this, will it?
I can't live like this. I can't. Please, no, I can't. I can't. Help me. Somebody please help me. Mother, where are you? Help me, Mother. I'm having a nightmare and I can't wake up.
Now the world is gone, I'm just one. Oh God, help me. Hold my breath as I wish for death. Oh please God, help me.
Me lying here like some freak in a carnival show.
He is the armless, legless wonder of the 20th century.
It has a dignity all its own. 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 Keep the home fires burning while our hearts are yearning.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Modern Muse Soul and Society virtual peace gathering benefiting the Black Lives Matter movement. I wanted to have a really candid conversation with all of you about the racial, social, and economic inequality that is plaguing our nation and beyond right now. We are proud to bring you an amazing panel of strong voices to educate us, to inspire us, and to help mobilize us. There is no doubt that the events of this year have left us all hurt, angered, quite frankly, pissed off, sad, lost. We are being called to heal, and not only just to heal the problem, we're being called to heal individually, to heal as a community, so that we can heal the world collectively. But in order for us to heal, we have to be honest about the problem, and we have to treat the problem at its root and not just talk about the symptoms. We have to somehow, some way heal the fallacy that we are all separate somehow from one another. We must be diligent, in fact, in protecting the truth about who we are, which is one people, a brotherhood, and a complete sonship. That is not something that we can argue. That is the truth of who we are. We are one, we are a brothership, and we are a sonship. And until we separate ourselves from that way of thinking, that errored way of thinking, we cannot treat the symptoms. So let's be clear about one thing. We are all being called. We are being called off the bench right now to unite, to understand where we have failed, to soul search, to dig deeply, to see how we've contributed to the problem and how we can be the solution. I see a lot of stuff going on Instagram and in conversations where we are still in a place of condemning others for their errored thinking. This is not the time for us to condemn people. We have to educate ourselves and educate other people so that we can heal collectively. We have Julie, my partner here at Modern Muse, put together, like I said, a great panel for you, including Roland Martin, who is a political activist, political analyst, author, writer, but we're going to get into that in a little bit. Now I want to introduce to you my partner in Modern Muse, Julie SKON. She's going to give us a little bit of a background on our company and our mission. I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for being here today. Thank you for all of your donations. As you know, all of these go straight to the Black Lives Matter movement. So with that said, I'm going to leave this off with Julie. I love you all, and I will see you through the duration of the program. I love you, and thank you.
Thank you, ZULAY. That was beautiful, and I'm already emotional, like many of us have been. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for donating. Thank you for taking your special time on a Sunday to come together in this peace gathering. Modern Muse, we have 4 pillars, and that is to connect us to soul, sex, science, and society. And ZULAY and I, our core value and what we are committed to is to having mindset disruptive, inspiring, shifting, growing conversations all of the time. That is what inspired us putting together this today. And again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. We are committed to being advocates for Black lives, so everyone can wake up feeling equal, with equal opportunities, safe, with freedom, with justice. I want this from the bottom of my heart. And with that, I am going to sit back. I'm going to listen. And again, thank you for being here.
All right, guys. So our first guest is a very dear friend of mine for over 15 years. I hate to age, or actually more, I hate to age myself like this on Zoom, but we're all friends. We're all family, right? He is, he's had an incredible life. He is a motivational speaker, a celebrity life coach, and a relationship expert. He's also been a cop, so he brings us a very unique perspective on the conversation. Please welcome our first guest, Jamel Davenport. Thank you so much for being here, Jamel. He's going to also lead us in prayer.
I can still see you, so I'm a little technically. Am I on? Is this ready to go? Okay. Thank you so much, Zulay and Julie, for just your vision. Thank you so much for creating this platform, and thank you for just investing in something that is bigger than both of you. I know you guys are very busy, and I know that you guys have very important things that you can call your own personal life, and to be able to extend this opportunity in a selfless way is very admirable. So thank you for that. I want to lead us in prayer, but prior to doing that, I want to play just one of my favorite songs. It's an instrumental. I believe that music is extremely vibrational, and I think that music can start to set or create an atmosphere that sometimes words cannot do. So if you would allow me just a few seconds to play this. And the theme behind the song is Hallelujah. And hallelujah is a word that we use to celebrate and to give reverence and give gratitude towards God. And I'll talk a little bit later about the awe version of hallelujah, Jehovah, God, Buddha, Krishna. It's awe, Yahweh, that we pronounce when we're looking to connect with the divine. And so as you hear the word hallelujah, or however you pronounce your deity, just let it repeat itself softly as I play this for a few more seconds. I'm going to let it play softly in the background. I want to share with you a little bit about what my posture of prayer is. I like to make my prayers more conversational than traditional. And I hope that you guys are seeing this as a form and expression of love, and that you don't feel compelled or converted in whatever posture resonates with you. I don't want you to feel limited. I don't want you to feel inferior. And I don't want you to feel superior either. I just want you to clear your mind, clear your thought, and just consider for one moment that if we all unify ourselves, if we all collectively get together in agreement that there's one God, one spirit, one consciousness, that corporate effort, that corporate prayer may begin to invoke the change that we all desire. My personal faith is that of a Christian consciousness. So that's where I will be speaking from today. If you have a different faith and you need to acknowledge that, by all means, please do so. But from where I sit with respect to my relationship, it is through the consciousness of Christ. And so I begin that by just acknowledging you, Lord, for being my Savior. I acknowledge this opportunity. I acknowledge that this is a moment in time that we are all suffering. We are all experiencing pain, Lord, on a level that is unimaginable. My prayer today to you is that you will give us an uncommon way of thinking, that you may give us an uncommon way of seeing life. Help us to surrender into the notion that we know better. Help us to surrender to the notion that we are better, that we are separate, that we are different. Help us to yield into the idea, Lord, that you have made us whole. And it is through your consciousness, through your mercy, and through your grace, that the humility of being human allows us to be able to exalt your name, exemplify who you are, and expand the relationship of the spirit nature. Everything, Lord, comes from spirit. Our minds are trained to believe that everything we see is important. And we don't take away from the blessings of all that man has contributed to society, Lord. but let us not forget that those are resources and that you are the ultimate source. And so let us look to you in times of despair. Let us look to you in times of agony. Let us look to you, Lord, for the supreme wisdom. We are facing a challenge, Lord, that has existed for eons, and we haven't figured it out yet. So I stand in humility. I stand before people now in humility, advocating, interceding, and just simply pleading that you will send down the Holy Spirit of wisdom and knowledge for reconciliation. Help us, Lord, in this very moment to heal those who are broken, to heal those who are angered, to heal those who are in anguish. Help us, Lord. Deliver us, Lord. Redeem us. Help us to see things in a different way. I say all these things in complete humility, Lord, because that's what's needed. May the love that you've given us, may the love that we have, may the love that you are, be the answer that casts out all fear. You have the answers, Lord. You are the answer, and help us to align with that truth. In the consciousness of Christ, I say amen. Hallelujah. Allah. Thank you for that. I made it through that without crying, which is, for me, is like, hooray, hooray. So the time that I have left with you guys, I want to share something that's really been on my heart. And I hope that you guys receive it and are willing to even take on the challenge at the end. So one of the things that we've learned as far as this pandemic is concerned is a very useful tip is social distancing. And obviously that's the applied notion that if we stay 6 feet from each other, we lessen the probability of further spread of this disease. And I thought about that for a minute. I was like, okay, so none of us actually want to be sick and get others sick. And so, yeah, if I stay 6 feet apart from you and or you stay 6 feet apart from me, then it's more challenging for this virus to become that more infectious. And you basically limit the contagion. So I thought to myself, where else in life are we infecting others? Where else in life are we infecting ourselves? And then I thought about how we're led most times, if not, via our emotions. You know, I've been a coach now for 20 years, and a lot of the work that I do is emotional reconciliation. And the difference is I'm not suggesting that you don't have emotions, because that's not possible as we understand it. What I'm suggesting is that you shouldn't be led, you shouldn't be hijacked, you shouldn't be held hostage to the emotions that don't serve you. And so I came up with this phrase called emotional distancing. Imagine if you were able to distance yourself from the emotions that no longer serve you. Imagine if you were able to distance yourself from toxic emotions of others, the toxic emotions of society, and the toxic emotions that may have been passed down to you through domestication, through programming, through conditioning. Imagine if you were able to distance yourself from fear, the emotion of fear, from hatred, the emotion of hatred, from scarcity, from the emotion of scarcity. And what about the big word that we're all dealing with right now, racism? Racism is not just a thing, it's the result of an emotion. Now, I've studied many different philosophies throughout my lifetime, and I've had the privilege of listening to some really brilliant people. And one of the common things that we collectively understand as of now is that there are really only two emotions, love and then there's fear. Excuse me, love and then there's fear. Everything else is symptomatic of one or the other. Love, harmony, peace, joy, sharing, kindness, grace, gratitude. Those things are symptomatic of love. Fear, scarcity, hatred, anger, poverty, racism. And so when you get to the origin of it, when you go to the perversion of a person's thinking, then you can understand how the emotion, which is just energy and motion, may have drawn them to a certain behavior. Now, I only have a little bit of time, but I want to make sure I give you guys a few thoughts here so that you can just apply this principle with a little bit of wisdom. your habits, which generate from your emotions, because remember I said emotions are just energy emotions. So your emotions become habits. Habits have reflexes. And the thing about habits is that they're embedded in you, right? A habit is designed to not be easy to break. The only problem with that is if you have a bad habit, it makes it more difficult to break or to release. If you have a good habit, then obviously that has a positive reinforcement. But when you have a bad habit, then that normally creates a bad reflex. And so if you have a habit of being led by the fear or of emotion, then the symptom of that fear, if it's anger, the reflex of that is an angry reaction. And so you got to see the order of how things work. And so when we see things at the end of it, we attack that, which I understand because that's a reaction. But if we don't get to the root of it, it's just going to continue to grow. And so what I want you to do is just consider what this emotional distancing could mean for you. Instead of just jumping into the anger or the results of that, instead of jumping into the scarce thinking, instead of jumping into the fear component of what we see, take a step back. Distance yourself from the toxic environment. Distance yourself from that which could draw you into the vibration that you are opposing. Think about an approach that you can use that transcends the actual circumstance. Think about an approach that you can use that can actually transfer this emotion to a reflex that is positive. And an old adage in the Bible would suggest that love casts out all fear. Love is the most dominant emotion. And I'm not referring to a kumbaya love. I don't want you to think that you should levitate off your mat, light a candle, and then all things will be well. And I'm not opposing to that. What I'm saying to you is find your lane, find your language, and how you can contribute at the best way possible. Don't just become a sheep. Learn how to be a shepherd. Shepherd your emotions, shepherd your thinking, and then shepherd your behavior. And then make sure that you're aligning yourself with the truth that is going to ultimately become a catalyst for change. Become an agent for change, but make sure you're taking inventory to the emotion that you're using for that change. Love is always the answer. And if you cannot understand what love may or may not mean, then look at the symptoms of that. Are you being harmonious with your neighbor? Are you being considerate of your neighbor? Are you giving to your neighbor? The greatest gift that you can ever give is that which you desire to receive. So in life, if you want more peace, give peace. If you want more kindness, give kindness. If you want more money, give money. The greatest gift in life is giving, not receiving. And by the act of giving, you produce a reciprocal effect by receiving. So I'm going to leave you with these last 4 things because I'm probably sure that I'm over my time, and forgive me if that's the truth. There are 4 pillars to enlightenment that I like to share with you. The first one is self-examination. It is so critical to do an examination on self, taking an inventory of self, checking in with yourself. There is no limit to this. You can do it on the hour, you can do it on a minute, you can do it on a second. How often you need to do it is totally your prerogative, but taking self-examination, it is an imperative in order to really function at a higher vibration. And then the second thing I want you to look at is extinguishing. Extinguishing the fires that have been lit by others. Things that make you angry, things that get you frustrated, things that completely just drain you. I want you to learn how to extinguish those fires. And I'm not talking about things that passionately burn inside of you for the productivity of things that you desire to achieve in your own personal life. I'm talking about the arsonist who showed up and told you that you weren't good enough. I'm talking about the arsonist that showed up in your life and told you that based off of the color of your skin and not the content of your character suggests that you are less than. I'm talking about the arsonist who is showing up to destroy things in you. And then when you extinguish that fire, what I want you to do is eliminate the debris. Eliminate the debris, the existing residue that's there. Things you've been harboring onto for a long time. Things you have never let go. The beautiful thing about understanding this concept is that debris has been there for all of us, and unfortunately, much longer than you can imagine. Everyone has debris from their past. No one's exempt from this rule. Most of us who have abandonment issues prevent us from abandoning issues. We harbor these things and they fester and they become callous and they harden, and you don't even realize that you're walking around with this. It's like parasitic emotions. Release them. And then after you extinguish, after you eliminate, then I want you to evolve. What is the evolution? Where and what can you evolve into? And this is the component that I believe Jesus was teaching when he says you need to be born again. Being born again doesn't mean that you have to run down a church aisle, do 4 or 5 backwards flips, cry uncontrollably, and have a pastor pour oil over your head. I've seen it a million times. I might even be guilty of it myself, but that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm not suggesting a church born again. I'm suggesting a renewal of your mind, a renewal of your thinking, a renewal of your being. This is something that you can do on a daily basis. So I want to go through it again because I think I may have, no, I said all 4, sorry. Okay, so examining self, extinguishing the fire, eliminating the debris, and then evolving. And you can repeat these daily, right? This is not something that you just do once and think that you've made it. This is something that I want you to try to incorporate in your own personal life. And I want you to try to just meditate on it, be present with it, and just let it go. And lastly, I want to say is just be kind. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and know that kindness is a very, very, very profitable tool that can be used for change. Kindness does not mean being passive. Kindness does not mean being silent. Kindness means being conscious. Pain is something that we will all experience. Suffering is an option. And when you learn how to pull purpose from your pain, when you learn how to understand that there's profit in all of your experiences, it gives you a greater leverage to deal with the pain that will always show up. We're never going to eradicate pain. It will always be here. But we can eradicate suffering. And we can become instruments of change. And as long as we align with that truth, and we do so together, and there's strength in numbers, we have a better chance of seeing a better future in ourselves and a better future in others. I hope this was helpful to you guys. I'm really grateful to be able to share this moment with you. And I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of my panelists. And I want to say thank you.
Wow, Jamel, thank you so much. I always, even in our lives that we do, I hate speaking after you because you're just so articulate and you're so good at what you do. Thank you so much for blessing us. I just want to reiterate 2 things that you said that I found so beautiful. Find your lane and find your language. Because to be perfectly honest and clear, what is that noise? Okay, we have been chosen for this time. We have been chosen for this time. And I think the silver lining is to find heart in it and to find the love in it. Because we have been chosen and we are being called off the bench to change lives, to change our lives, to be kind, and to, like Jamel said, not eradicate pain, but to pull purpose from it. Right. Our next guest is someone that I admire very much. She is a motivational coach and fitness evangelist. If you've ever had the honor of being in her presence or hearing her speak, then you know firsthand how incredible and inspirational she is. Thank you, Angela MANUEL-DAVIS, for joining us. She has raised over $100,000 for another Black initiative. And when I tell you that she is powerful, we are so happy and honored to have you, Angela. Thank you so much for being here, sister.
Thank you for having me.
Angela!
Hi. Hi, everybody. So good to be here. Modern Muse, I am just, what a privilege. I was listening to Bishop T.D. Jakes this morning as I was preparing for this, and he said something. He said, when God is using you, it's so horrifying because you know how little he has to work with. And it made me laugh because you know, every time I get asked to do something like this, you know, I always feel underqualified or not worthy. But, you know, we are all called. We are all absolutely called. And this is the greatest moment in human history. We are in the greatest moment of human history. And just like what you said, we are all called. Every single one of us is called. We were actually created for this. We were actually built for this. As we were being knitted in our mama's womb, the capacity to be in this moment was downloaded in our DNA. The capacity to be right here and right now. We are the ones. We are the ones. And so in acknowledging that, I am honored. I am honored to be here. And I want to read this prayer that that I just ran across this morning that I thought was so beautiful. And it's a prayer for true justice. And it says, "Oh Heavenly Father, our hearts are heavy, broken. Please give us eyes to see and ears to hear where your Spirit is working. Help us see every person the way that you see them. Break our hearts for what breaks yours, God. Let us not merely say that we love each other. Give us strength to mourn with those who mourn, to weep with those who weep. Let your justice roll like waters. Let your righteousness, love, flow from us like rivers of living water. Purify our hearts, Lord, and fill us with genuine hunger for justice, for mercy, for true peace. Heavenly Father, let justice and mercy start with me. Start with me. Use me. Use me. Start with me. Is underqualified as we all feel. Start with me. If we could just say that, start with me. Start with me. And know that we are enough. And know that we've been prepared for this. We can rest assured in our preparedness for this moment. Is overwhelming as it feels. I want to talk to the person that feels like, as we were climbing this mountain of COVID, and we were close to this mountaintop, and the country was beginning to reopen, and we were getting excited, and we're like, whoa, we're gonna get back. It's reopening. I want to talk to the person that was excited about that and felt and was anticipating that. And then as our breath was taken away from us, as we watched George Floyd be murdered in front of our eyes, we found ourselves at the base of a mountain that is over 400 years deep, and felt despair. And I want you to know that that despair is just as deadly as the denial of racism itself. It's just as deadly. That despair is just as deadly as discrimination. That despair is deadly. I want us to be hopeful today. I want us to be hopeful that we are the change and that we can do this, that we can do hard things. We can do hard things. And this moment, yet it feels hard, I am hopeful. I am hopeful. I am seeing people for the first time have reactions to a fight that I felt like was only mine as a Black woman and in our Black community. I felt like isolated in that fight. And all of a sudden there's people that are reacting and responding and recognizing that this fight is all of our fight. This is everybody's fight. And I am hopeful. I am hopeful in that momentum that in the 40 plus some years that I've been here, that I haven't seen momentum like this and an awakening like this. I haven't seen. And so how do we take the reaction and make it an action? We decide to put something on it every day. We put something on it every day. For me, I'm a coach, I'm a motivator, and I tell my athletes all the time, you know, you got to put something on it every day. We got to put something on justice every day. Just like you fought for your goals and your dreams and your best life, just like you've done that, where maybe it would wake you up early in the morning, or maybe you would stay up late at night because you were putting something on it. We got to put something on this every single day. And a good way to do that, just like what was already said, is finding your lane and finding your language, is taking the gifts and talents that you've been given and give them back to the world. To me, that is one of the most beautiful cycles that we have an opportunity to operate in anyway, is that we can take what we've been given and give it back to the world. So for me, you know, I have a training facility. I have a company, a fitness brand, Army. And so I have that. So let me take what I have and give it back. And so, you know, like you pointed out, on Friday, we held practices, we held training sessions on IG Live, you know, for the entire day, and raised over $100,000, and you know, for the Equal Justice Initiative. And not to say, look at me, but just to encourage you, I'm no different. I'm no more qualified. I'm not. Like, these moments horrify me, actually. They horrify me, but I'm not gonna stay on the sidelines. I can't. I have two sons. I'm fighting for their life. I'm fighting for my life. I'm fighting for your life. I'm fighting for your children's life. I can't sit on the sidelines. We can't sit on the sidelines. We can't be bystanders in this. This is our fight. We have to show up and do what we can, however that looks. And so I just wanted to encourage you in that today, and let you know that whatever you have is more than enough. Whatever you have is more than enough. And you are qualified, and you are worthy. We are worthy of this moment, the most extraordinary moment in human history. We are worthy of it. We are worthy to be here. And so what will we do with it? And will we do right by this moment? We must do right by this moment. This isn't a time where we say we can try. We must do right by this moment. So every day, put something on it. Put something on it. Remind yourself that we can do this. Remind yourself that we are called. Remind yourself that we are qualified. Remind yourself that we are equipped. Remind yourself, remember who you are. Somebody on here has to remember who they are. And do not grow weary in well-doing. Don't grow weary in well-doing. This is a marathon. This isn't a sprint. There are gonna be moments where you're gonna need to take a beat. There are gonna be moments where you're gonna need to recover. Take those moments. Take those moments. You know, for me, physicality is so important. Strengthening your body, strengthening your mind. You know, that's why I do what I do, you know, so we can be strong in our mind and in our body so that we can do the call on our life. Take time every day to exercise and eat right. And this is because this is the revolution. It's here. It's here. So let us stay strong in our mind and in our body. Let's be mindful of what we're putting in. My parents, when I was growing up, there were certain things that we weren't allowed to listen to or watch on television. My parents would always say, garbage in, garbage out, garbage in, garbage out. So we had to be mindful, and I'm the same way as a parent with my kids. There's certain things that we're not listening to in the house. There's certain things, you know, there's so much power. And I loved starting off with Hallelujah. I loved how that changed the atmosphere. There's so much power in that. So we'll just blast worship music and we'll change the atmosphere in the house. But be mindful how many news cycles that you know find yourself kind of going down that rabbit hole. Be mindful of that. Be mindful of that so that we can stay strong and postured for this fight. This is the fight of our lives. And I just want to say I love you guys. I just want to say that you're equipped. I want to say that I am grateful. I am honored, and thank you. I hope that this blessed you. So thank you.
Oh, my goodness, Angela, I'm shaking. I have so many emotions listening to you talk. Just reminds me that the real fight is the fight that we're really having is the fight for our inherent peace and love that God left us. That's our inheritance. And so when you say put something on it every day, that means be kind to somebody every day. If you have to educate somebody, don't condemn them. Speak to them. If you have to step out of your comfort zone to go on a live, if you have to get uncomfortable with speaking like I was or I am, we have to stay diligent, and we also have to find our voice. Protesting isn't for everybody, I get that. This isn't for everybody, and I get that, but this is no longer a fight for this is a fight for all of us. We are all being called to use our voice, to use our strengths, to use our platforms. And by the way, what Angela just said is so important. And I'm just going to echo that because I felt that way. Even when my partner and I started Modern Muse, sometimes you feel the enemy tries to make you feel that your platform somehow isn't big enough yet. You know, you don't have the right words to say yet. You're not there yet. You're not educated yet. You're not articulate enough yet. It's all crap. It's not real. We're all being called to be vulnerable and to open up so that we can, like Angela said, protect ourselves, protect our children, and that we can really walk through this world like the brothers and the sisters that we are. That is our gift. That is our inheritance. We are a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a sonship, and it's not complete unless all of us are there. Our next guest is Laz Alonso. He is an Afro-Cuban actor, Black Lives Matter activist. He is a graduate of Harvard University, and my dear, dear friend, Laz, I love you so much for doing this. Thank you so much. You're so vocal, and you have such a strong voice, and the fact that you said yes to me immediately is just a testament of our 13-year plus friendship. So everyone, please welcome my dear friend, Laz Alonso.
Hey, how's everybody doing? First, I want to say God bless everyone in this Zoom chat. Thank you for taking time out of your Sunday to do something positive, to share positive energy, to share positive information. And I pray to God that what I share today helps affect some type of change and shed some type of light and adds value to this conversation. Thank you, Zulay. Thank you, Modern Muse, for allowing me to be here. I just want to share that over the last couple weeks since since before the Floyd incident happened with COVID, I mean, we've already been dealing with over 3 months of COVID, lack of knowledge and leadership. And we get to the point where we see another one of our own, because when we watch a human being be unjustly stripped of his life, he is part of our global community. I would love as a black man to say George is one of us, which he is. But at the same time, when we lose a George or Eric Garner or a Sandra Bland or Breonna Taylor, the entire human race is lost. Everybody is experiencing this loss. And so I found that in my attempt to make change, I have had a lot of very powerful discussions with a lot of different people. There have been a lot of very aggressive discussions. Some have been quite confrontational. Some from people that stand on the opposite aisle of what they view this situation is, and some that stand on my very same aisle. We both have the same common enemy, but we just have different approaches. And so what I wanted to share today was that I believe that we must all operate from a place of intention. And I wanted to list those intentions during the time that I have to speak. If I go over, Zulay, please tap me, or Julie, please tap me, because sometimes I can get on that soapbox and not know when to stop. Right now, it's time to listen to each other with intention. We don't all have the answer. We all know what we want to see change, but there are other people who have been living this fight day to day. There are people who have been fighting this fight in between the camera phone footage that we see every so often of somebody losing their life. We all have something to learn of how we can use our platform to affect change and what change means. I'm learning a lot right now from defunding the police. Admittedly, this is something that I had never heard before, nor did I know it was an option or that this was something that was even a possibility of a discussion that we could have. I also didn't know that there were mayors that have tried to do it, including in Minneapolis. Mayor Frey has tried to defund the police, and he was met at a roadblock from the police union and arbitrators that even when you fire a police officer, an arbitrator can come and give him his job back. So firing, where we think, oh, they got fired, it still isn't the end of the fight. There are other entities in place that we must learn how to overcome. So we must learn with intention. I think that another thing that we have to do that's even harder than learning is unlearning with intention. There are so many things, so many preconceived biases that life, our parents, our grandparents, other generations have bestowed upon us that we have accepted, that we just kind of skim through. We're just, well, it doesn't bother me, or it bothers me, but they tell me not to go right, I'll just go left. This is the time when we have to unlearn those biases, when we have to, with intention, challenge them, unlearn them, and use whatever it is that we have as an opportunity at that moment to not continue to just go with the flow. This is the time. It's also time to teach with intention. I've had a bunch of conversations this week with my agents, my managers, studio executives who have proactively reached out to me to ask me, how can I be a better ally? What am I doing wrong? How can I service you better? How can I service this moment better? And I took that opportunity to let them know how they can service this moment better. Because when a person has not thought of themselves as an ally, now that they're finally seeing it's not good enough to not be racist. You have to be anti-racist. Not being racist is passive. Being anti-racist is action. It takes action and effort. And a lot of people they're frozen. They're like, okay, what do I do? This is a fight I've never had to face. What do I do? And with the little bit of knowledge that I had, I'm not going to hold back at that moment. That's a moment where I can share with a studio exec You know, you need more people in the C-suite. You need more people of color, more Black people, more Latin people, more Asian people, more, you know, if it ain't white, it's a voice that can tell a story and that can analyze things, you know, from a different lens, you know. And no offense to white people, but this is the world we live in. We live in an inclusive society of different genders and different, you know, places that inform our creative selves. And everyone deserves a seat at the table and the ability to speak their truth. And we have to use that teachable moment in a way where it's not weaponized. Because the last thing you want to do is to talk down to someone or to use that moment to get out a gripe. That's a moment where you can really say, there are rooms that I will never have access to in conversations where I will never be a part of, but you are. And at that moment, this is where you can be an ally. When you see something that's said that's wrong, or when you see something that's done that's intentionally done for the simple reason that, you know, it has nothing to do with talent or ability, it has to do with race or bias, this is where we need you to speak up. It's time for us to research with intention. I've been doing so much research. I'm literally like losing my mind because there's so much to learn. There's so much to learn. There's so much I didn't know. You know, even this morning when I was in bed, I didn't even get out of bed, and I was watching this podcast on how Wall Street makes money off of police brutality. Wall Street, police brutality is a profitable business. You know, and shout out to Rashad Bilal and those guys on their podcast, your Earn Your Freedom podcast. But cities have to buy bonds, police brutality bonds, to cover what their insurance doesn't cover. And these bonds have to be paid back with interest, and 18% interest. And guess who's paying for those bonds? We are. Our tax dollars are what they utilize to purchase these police brutality bonds that they're going to be paid back with millions of dollars worth of interest. It is such a systemic situation from Wall Street that it's not just the police station. You know, we have our minds now focused on the police station, but it's such a humongous system that it really lets you know that no one is exempt. No one is free of this web. Insurance companies make a tremendous amount from police brutality. Why? Because police departments and cities have to get insurance for police brutality, just like you have to get insurance, car insurance or health insurance. Cities purchase insurance for police brutalities when they have these cases that you know, somebody does what they did to George Floyd and they decide to settle and make a civil suit and pay out people. They get that money from their insurance policy. Who pays for that insurance policy? Us, our tax dollars. You know, so there are so many layers that have to be dissected and infiltrated. And voting is one step. But we are a collective part of this problem if we don't use our position to push others who are benefiting from this and can stay in the back quiet and just count their money. So we have to research. We have to research with the intention of learning. Okay, there's a saying that says follow the money. Okay, what does that mean? You know, and we got to find out these insurance companies, put pressure on them. We got to find out these bonds that exist, put pressure on them, find out who's behind all of this and how to terminate that system. Because as long as they can pay for it with our money, it's going to keep happening. No matter who we put in office. And lastly, it's time to impact your tribe with intention. You have to impact your tribe. You know, if you look at this problem from the macro, it seems overwhelming. It seems impossible to tackle. It feels like, man, I need a break. You know, this is just too big of a problem for little old me to change. But if every little old me makes a change and we all impact our little sector and our little part of the chain, our families who have biases, our circle of friends that we grew up with, and we know that one over there, well, I know he don't like black people, but he likes me, but he don't like black people, you know? Or this other person who, you know, may not like white people or what have you. It's time for us to speak up. It's time for us to affect our tribe. Because each one of us has some value to add. Each one of us works or participates in a part of this system that we're saying is sick. Each one of us contributes to it, even if it's through taxes. We have a voice that we must use. The biggest lie that was told to us was that voting doesn't matter. Voting matters. I mean, I'm sure that with the group of people that are in this room, I'm preaching to the choir, but voting matters. And if I am preaching to the choir, then we need to all in this choir sing this song to everyone outside of us, whether it be people that we know that don't vote and don't believe in it, to people that we may not know. You know, whenever I put up a post about voting, I'll probably get half of the comments are beating me down, telling me that voting doesn't work, voting is a scam, voting doesn't change anything, it doesn't change anything. And I'm in those comments fighting back because that is the biggest lie that has been told to us. Because if we don't vote, guess what? The people that we complain about will. They're the ones that are running to the voting booth. And they're not being systematically, you know, oppressed the way you are. They're not being suppressed. Their votes aren't being suppressed. Yours is. And part of the suppression is to make you believe that your voice does not count. So have patience, have empathy, speak out, and affect your tribe with intention. That's all I have to say. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this, and just keep fighting, y'all.
Whew. Laz, thank you so much, Laz. I just want to reiterate some of the things that you said. You were so powerful. Impact your tribe with intention. So when putting this together for all of you and for all of us and for myself, I did come across some tough conversations with my friends. And in the past, I had taken the position that, okay, well, that's just how they feel. They need to be educated. So I contributed to the problem by being passive. I can tell you that I have contributed to the problem by being passive, and that is done. So if we are in a position which we are all being called to, make no mistake about that. If we're going to take this position seriously, then we have to be willing to get uncomfortable, even with the people that we love. Your grandmother, your aunt, my friends that I invited to this event who said to me, well, I don't want to take sides. This is not, Black Lives Matter in this position that we're taking right now is not anti-cop. There's a lot of people that are so misguided about what the revolution is really about. And Laz, you just spoke on it so beautifully. I just wanted to add to that we have contributed by being silent. and by not speaking up and by not getting uncomfortable with our friends, because that's where it starts. We can only impact change from within and start within our tribe. Because if we just say, okay, well, we're going to change, it's too exhausting, it's too overwhelming for one person to think that they can change the world. But we together, there's 62 of us in here right now. If we take these conversations and we take them out into the world, I didn't know that there was a police brutality bond. I didn't know that. So now what I can do is I can go educate myself, speak to it to my family, and they can educate other people. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. So our next guest is our main speaker, Roland Martin, a political activist, Black Lives Matter advocate. He is the managing editor at Roland Martin Unfiltered. You've seen him on CNN. You've seen him on a ton of other platforms, TV One, Washington on Watch with Roland Martin. He's been in the Situation Room. He's been alongside Anderson Cooper and many others. Aside from all of this, he's my dear friend. He's been an advocate, just someone that I really admire and look up to. Welcome, Roland Martin, to our program here today. Is he here? I think he just, okay, so let's move on, because I think he went to go get a book. He went to go get some more information, but this is what we do. We just keep rolling with the punches. We just...
Let me go, shit.
Who's this? DUVAL? Come on, where are you?
I'm right here. You can't see me?
I just muted myself. I'm
on
here.
there. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, cool. What's happening?
You guys, this is DUVAL, comedian and actor DUVAL. This is my dear friend. You know, I hit him up the other day. He said yes immediately. So DUVAL, thank you so much. We can't see your face though, so
you can't?
Oh,
you can't see my face? Roland's here?
We can't see your face, but Roland's on. We can see his face. So you're right after him though, DUVAL.
All right.
Stay. Put your camera on.
I thought my camera is on.
We'll figure it out. Roland, let's go. How are you, brother? Did you hear my intro?
Hey, what's going on? I told you to text me a 60-second head start because I'm looking for.
It's all family. We're all family here by now. It's all good.
I'm looking for a book, and I was upstairs, and I still cannot find that particular book.
All in your head.
Hey, if you want to go look, I'll go now. If you want me to, Roland, I want
to go find your book.
Actually, no, I'm good. But Lil DUVAL, trust me, you don't want to follow me because
that's why I want to go in front of you. I don't want to go after you. I'm trying to hurry up and go. There's too many good.
Okay,
there's too many good speakers on here, man.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Roland. Go ahead, OG.
All right, so let me go ahead and speak to this. Certainly glad to be here, July. Thanks for the invite. And can't nobody ever turn you down, so you know we were all gonna say yes anyway. But let's get started. I want everybody to think about this here. If you were a 12-year-old white, Black, Hispanic kid, or you were 15 years old in 2008, when the history was made, when President Barack Obama was elected, I want you to understand that those people are now young adults. So when you look at what's happening out in the streets right now, these are the folks who came of age with a Black president. Those of us who are older, we don't have that benefit. So for them, the world that they see is a completely different one. The world, the possibilities that they believe where we should be is totally different, because for them, their marker is that of the nation's first African-American president. So when you look at this reaction that is taking place all across the world to the murder of George Floyd, you have to put that thing within historical context in terms of how America responded when they saw the dogs and the fire hoses unleashed against children, when they saw the actions of police, when they saw what happened with Bloody Sunday after Jimmy Lee Jackson was shot and killed, and then they crossed that Edmund Pettus Bridge. What we have to understand is that in American history, nearly every race riot was preceded by an act of police brutality. New York, Memphis, Washington, D.C., we can go down the line. Nearly every race riot was preceded by an act of police brutality. Now, the people out there who are defenders of police, their whole deal is, oh, but not all are bad. But when you have video after video after video, then when you start reading those names, and when you start thinking about, yes, Ahmaud Arbery, when you start thinking about Breonna Taylor, you start thinking about George Floyd, then we go back to Rekia Boyd, Aiyana Jones, John Crawford III, Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Stephon Clark, and we start going on and on and on and on and on, you begin to have an understanding of how widespread this is. Folks have been asked, well, yeah, but what makes this different? Here's what I think makes this different. We saw the video of Philando Castile, but bullet fired, see it, reaction. Saw the video of Eric Garner, but this is different because we literally watched for almost 10 minutes the breath being taken out of a person's body. I think that is what makes this a lot more different than before. So there are people who are protesting. There are protests in Australia, in London, in Berlin, all across the world, all across the United States. But what we have to understand is that those protests are vitally important to raising the consciousness of people. But it's what happens after the protests that matters. We can talk about civil rights movement, and we can sit here and talk about this brother right here, Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, one of the greatest civil rights leaders there in Birmingham. We can talk about any number of people. We can talk about Dr. King, of course, his unbelievable book, Chaos or Community, Where Do We Go From Here, which every person should have a copy of this book. But there's a person whose name we never ever talk about, who's important. His name is Clarence Mitchell. You might say, bro, who is Clarence Mitchell? Well, Clarence Mitchell, his nickname was called the 101st Senator. Clarence Mitchell is a book done on him called Lion in the Lobby. Clarence Mitchell was the person who worked for the NAACP, whose job was to lobby Congress to get the laws passed. See, we don't know his name. We know King, we know Shuttlesworth, we know all of the folks who were on television. And they were also involved, strategy and meeting with the president. But what we don't know are the people who had to do the difficult work to get those bills passed. So why am I bringing up Clarence Mitchell? Protests are going to continue, but where we have to be thinking now is, okay, how then do we then begin to enact systematic change? How do you begin to change city law, state law, county law, federal law? How do you then begin to tackle the issue of police union contracts, qualified immunity, Bill of Rights? How do you begin to do that? That is going to take people who have the patience to understand you have to begin to affect the political process. Voting is one thing. Putting people in place who we want to do those things is one thing, but then you also, how do you deal with the people who are already there, who you have to now lobby and put pressure on? So I'm very appreciative of seeing the Frank Rizzo statue come down in Philadelphia, the Confederate statues coming down in Lynn Park in Birmingham, seeing the other actions being taking place. But to deal with systemic change, it now requires us to begin to target folks in a very difficult way. Look at what's happening in corporate America. Look at all these people releasing these statements. All of these companies, oh, Black Lives Matter. And it's great PR. But do Black senior executives matter? Do Black board members matter? Do Black employees matter? So what does that mean? So all these companies releasing statements, now our job is to go, oh, well, now that y'all have opened the door, what's your minority supplier development? What Black businesses do you work with? What Black attorneys do you work with? What Black bond companies do you work with? What Black engineering companies? Who are your board of directors? How many Black senior executives do you have? What P&L responsibility do they have? No, I don't mean the person with community relations or the chief diversity and inclusion officer. I mean the people who have profit and loss responsibility in your companies. See, now we have to begin to put them on, put the spotlight on them. And see, I know they're giving out money. Oh, this company, they gave $1 million. Y'all realize a company giving $1 million is a tax write-off? But if you are totally ignoring elevating people of color to positions of prominence, then that's a whole different conversation. The challenge that lies before us is that you must take anger and frustration that you're seeing on the streets and then parlay that to change in suites. When we had the May Day marches all across the country, and I saw brothers and sisters who were Hispanic and Latino marching all across the country, I said to people, if you don't have a political infrastructure to then create that level of change, it's not going to happen. That's exactly what happened. Latinos, Hispanics were marching, protesting, but you did not have the political infrastructure where you can then go to powers that be, say, if you don't do these things, we're going to unleash them back on the streets. Too many of us have not studied the civil rights movement. We have not studied what's going on. The book I was looking for is a book on Operation Breadbasket written by Martin Depp on how they use the economic boycotts. See, people holler economic boycotts, but no, that was a strategy. The program was created by Reverend Louis Sullivan in Philadelphia. Dr. King asked them to come present to the SCLC. They adopted it. That's what Reverend Jackson later led. And then that's how it went from Operation Breadbasket to Rainbow Push. How they effectively used the power of economic boycott, which was the last part of the strategy to get the companies to create economic reciprocity. I challenge you to go listen to Dr. King's April 3rd, 1968 mountaintop speech. No, not that bottom part, not the part when he says, I've been to the mountaintop. The part up ahead, before we talked about, he quoted Reverend Jackson by saying, we must redistribute the pain. What I mean by that, we must redistribute the pain in this country to get people to understand that, you know what, we're not gonna have any change unless you begin to change the economic paradigm in this country. Here's my final point. This is 2020. We are 23 years away from America become a nation, majority people of color. By 2043, America would be majority Black, Brown, Asian, Native American. What we are witnessing right now, folks, in this country is white fear. The fear of losing power, the fear of not being in control, where the values change. Why did America react the way they did to Colin Kaepernick by taking a knee? Because white values in America, oh, you love the flag. It's an enduring symbol and you praise it. It's really what Drew Brees was saying. But see, when you're Black and your grandfather or your father fought for the country and came back, it didn't love them, that's a whole different deal. Please read Jackie Robinson's book, I Never Had It Made, where Jackie Robinson said why he does not sing the national anthem, nor does he salute the flag, because he talked about the racism. The book is called I Never Had It Made because he said that if one Black person in America was being blocked from success due to racism, then I never had it made. What we are dealing with, folks, I need y'all to be prepared for this. This is not about Trump. Trump is simply a symptom of the issue. What we are about to embark on is a 50 to 100 year journey to change America. America is deathly afraid of the demographic changes going on in this country. And so they are seeing what's happening. So to have white allies and Latino allies and Black allies joining together, that speaks to exactly what the fear was in the 1800s after the Civil War, when there was fear of freed slaves and poor white folks uniting to be able to redefine this nation. We've had examples of that, but they've always been stopped and stifled. So our challenge right now is to take our anger and frustration and begin to say, at what place, at what point do I want to work on, and how am I going to be a change agent? Does it mean I'm funding the movement? Does it mean that I am hitting the streets? Does it mean that I'm using my media and my voice? What does it mean? Because if you're an entertainer, Harry Belafonte, Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee, Diane Carroll, Dick Gregory, all use their voices and power to change. Everybody has the ability to actually do this. We must be in this thing for the long haul. It was 13 years. from the moment Emmett Till was killed on August 28th to the Fair Housing Act, the Civil Rights Act of 68 being passed 9 days after Dr. King was assassinated. That's 13 years. Folks, this is not going to be easy. It is not going to be easy to attack the police infrastructure and the racial inequality and all of these systems, but what it can do is change if there are people who are truly committed to doing it, who are willing to put in the work to make it happen. The question is, what are you prepared to do? Now, I'll leave you with this. You cannot have a changed America unless you have changed states. You cannot have changed states unless you have changed cities. You cannot have changed cities unless you have changed neighborhoods. Changed neighborhoods require changed blocks. Changed blocks require changed streets. Changed streets require changed houses along that street. And it all starts with one individual in one house saying, this is how we are going to move forward. Change person in house changes the house. Change house changes the neighbors. Neighbors change street. Street changes blocks. Block changes neighborhood. Neighborhood changes city. City changes states. States change country. Country changes world. It all starts with one person making the commitment that they are willing to be a change agent. Now it's time for us to get to work.
Wow. Thank you so much, Roland. Can I just add to that? I mean, there's nothing to add. You know, I'm gonna give you guys the books. I managed to write them down. So the first book I see some of you guys are writing in the comments is Operation Breadbasket by Martin L. Deppe.
Yep, D-E-P-P-E.
Yep. And the other one is I Never Had It Made by Jackie Robinson. If I just may echo what I said at the beginning of this, is that the change has to happen within us first. We have to change our mind. We have to change our mind and then our hearts, and then everything else will follow. But it's a marathon, guys. I mean, we just heard it from someone who studies this, and I am going to make a commitment to myself to study this more in depth, Martin. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. Mr. Martin. Why'd I call you Martin?
Yeah, Mr. Martin, that's my daddy. I'm Roland.
Ah, there you go. Thank you so much, Roland. I love you so much. I know that there's so much information here for all of us to download, but I don't want to keep DUVAL waiting. So let's get him on here. And his camera is on, I believe.
Praise the Lord.
What's happening, man? Shout out to everybody on here. The only reason I want to hurry up and get off because I got to do my Zoom with my nephew, his birthday. So I'm trying to, I promised them too. But I mean, from what I'm listening to so far, we all got the answer. We just got to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just wanted to come on here. Like, that's what I just did. We all got to understand our superpowers in this and be the change that you want to see. We try to outthink this thing and try to think it's complicated, but it's simple like the other ladies. Excuse me with the name, because I don't know none of y'all names besides Roland. And the only reason I know his name is because we got the same name. But for the most part, I think one of the ladies, I forgot what she said exactly, but she was pretty much saying you have to actually do it. And that's what I do in my everyday life. So even now that we're doing this now, nothing's changed. And the most important thing is do everything out of love and not out of hurt. Because when you do it out of hurt, you end up being the villain. And you don't want to be the villain. So everything you do, even to your enemy, you have to do it out of love, even talking to them. And that's one of the main things that will make progress in everything. And it's really as simple as that. You know, it's pay it forward. I use simple things throughout my life and program myself to where it worked. And I've seen it work, and I've seen it work in my community. And I do it because I want to do it, not because I do it selfless, and everything I do is selfless, and that's where I think where my blessings come from, my selflessness. And if we all just do that simply, and like what Roland said, we was taught that the presidential is what we should vote for. But like he said, it starts in the neighborhood and your home, and that builds from there, and it trickles on, and next thing you know, we have a lot of power. So if we all just do this and talk to not us. Because we all know we need to just go out there and just talk to the people that don't know, or the ignorant, or the person that you think is your enemy. Because if you talk to them, you realize they might not be your enemy. They might just be somebody that was taught it was generational behavior. So we have to converse with each other in order to be great. So that's all I want to say.
DUVAL, thank you, my love. I appreciate you so much for being here today. And when I tell you guys that this man, really what he said right now, there's no other way to explain him. He does do everything out of love. I remember when I met DUVAL, I was going through a breakup and DUVAL was calling me and just making sure I was okay. And you're so wise, and the way that you talk to young people on your platform is so important. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out, but also for talking to young people the way that you do, because I feel like talking to young people, like Barack Obama said the other day in a statement, and I don't have it before me, so I don't want to mess this up, but basically he said that the way that the world is going to change, and the way that we're going to change this country is by having a whole new era, a whole new community of advocates. He said, we can't do it anymore. We, basically, in not so many words, he said, we need young people. We need to employ and we need to mobilize young people. And I know a lot of you on here are a little younger, a little older, but there's a whole generation underneath us that need our guidance. And I really want to give you shine a big spotlight on you, because by way of what you do, you're a comedian, you have a huge platform where a lot of people, a lot of young minds come to your page, and you find a way to really stick to your brand and stick to who you are, but still leave a positive message. And that's really beautiful, DUVAL. Thank you so much. I love you.
I appreciate everybody on here, man. I love y'all.
Thank you.
Be being the change you want to see.
Yes, amen. And next we have our sister, Grisha Webb. She's one of my best friends, actress, comedian, superwoman, kind heart. I love you, Grisha. Where are you? Thank you for doing this. Here you are.
Hey, today has been so healing, and I'm so appreciative of every single person that has spoken. I really don't have much to say. I have a lot of work to do. I've been taking notes. Thank you guys, from Roland. I got so many books to read. Thank you. But really in the time that I've been using this time, it's just having uncomfortable conversations with people so I can make them comfortable to go out and have more uncomfortable conversations. And so I just urge people to, again, do that with love as much as possible. And a lot of my friends that are out on the front lines, and, it's inconvenient that we have COVID to worry about, because our heart and our spirit wants to be out there marching with everyone, but we all can do our part as much as possible. Of course, I love being funny. And I love doing things to bring light into people's lives. But I think in this time for us to use our platform as much as possible to put the truth out there as much as possible. It's a lot of things on social media that aren't true. And I have friends that call me out on it. It's like, is that true? So it makes me also research, and with the intention of actually learning and trying to figure it out for myself so that I can spread that information the correct way. But I think that's really all we can do, is just make people uncomfortable, but make people comfortable to be uncomfortable. Because I feel like the people that are out right now and they are asking these questions, I felt like I was in this fight alone for so much of my life. And so to see, to go out for the first time like I did last week or this week, and seeing people that, are all different races marching with me and wanting to know and wanting to see how they can help, and holding people accountable, and the people that they have around them having uncomfortable conversations is moving to me. And I'm appreciative of it. And I just am excited for so much more of that to happen. And I just want everyone to feel comfortable and do the research so that they can also, have the right and correct information, so they can have those conversations and put more of the right information into people. And especially with policy change and knowing what we can do and why we're going to the voting booths. Like, I vote, but sometimes I know I have to do more now when I vote. I have to know who's behind every every prop and what everything is actually saying, because sometimes the language in which they put on these, you know, ballots and how they try to tell you what's going on, it can be kind of misleading, and you're trying to break it down so far. I feel like there needs to be a better way of doing that. And I talked to Van Jones about that, and I appreciate you too, Roland, and the way that you break things down in a way, in a conversational manner, that I can understand it and that the younger generation can understand it as well. What I'm mostly concerned with right now, what I think my mission is right now, is to inspire the youth, that is the generation that is under me, and realizing that, you know, I call them the Gucci belts, but how can we inspire the Gucci belts to go out and vote? You know, there's so much in the hip hop culture that, you know, really can, you know, really influence the culture. And how do I get those people excited about voting? And beyond that, caring about who's, like what you were saying, Laz, you know, who's behind every single legislator and every single prop and every single thing. And, you know, attacking these judges that are in office right now that arrested your homie or whatever, and how to be a bully, pretty much. You know, it's like, we're not fighting your neighbor, we're fighting the system. And if we can fight the system the right way, we'll have a better opportunity to do what we do best. So that's all I gotta say. That's what I've been doing on my platforms now.
Thank you so much, Grisha. I know that you had a very interesting experience at your localized voting place, and I'm glad that you touched on that, because I think that's kind of what Laz and Roland really emphasize, is that to make change, we have to really, to create change, we really have to pay attention and know, but also be vocal in those stateside and local voting. And I myself have to educate myself in that space more. So I am pledging to do that right here on this call with you guys. Thank you, Grisha. I love you so much, baby. Our next guest, I have the honor of presenting my brother, Stephen HENAO-ESCOBAR, who is a West Point graduate and also an entrepreneur. Stephen is going to be talking to us a little bit about economic disparity, economic inequality in our communities. I'm so proud to say that I think my brother is one of the smartest people I've ever met. So I'm happy to introduce you guys to my brother, Stephen.
So it seems like Stephen, okay, there he is.
All right, I think I'm live here, right? All right, so I want to start by saying thank you to everybody. Zulay, that was, you know, an extremely nice welcome, and I hope I can live up to it. But from Jamel to Roland, Little DUVAL, Grisha, Angela, a couple of folks that I don't know, thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. It's an honor. So that was saying a little bit about my background. I'm a West Point graduate. I went into finance after school, thinking I really wanted to make this money. I got to make money. I got to do this. And you know, you're involved with the music and the culture, and you want to be successful. You want to be so ambitious. And then I realized, while both in the military and then in banking, all this while I'm playing this role. I'm living up to someone else's standards of who I'm supposed to be. And what I recognized in a lot of these protests, and I'm a millennial, I'm 32 years old now, but I'm seeing Generation Z. I have a son now, and I'm looking at my son. I guess he's Generation Alpha. And I'm wondering to myself, how many people have been forced to be something that they are not? In a country that's more or less denominated, founded on the idea of profit seeking, constantly churning people, their resources, their talent, their energy for profit's sake. After a while, this win-lose scenario gets exhausting. It's dehumanizing. And what you're seeing now, you're seeing a whole generation of kids who have no attachments to the society that corporate America has built. You know, Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, Brian Moynihan of Bank of America, JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, they all put out these wonderful letters to shareholders describing how the wealth gap and the difference between, you know, Black African-American income, Latino income, C-suite positions is enormous. Here's the problem. Writing a letter doesn't cut it. And Roland had already said this precisely because these gentlemen have been financiers their whole life. In 2008 and 2009, when they first wrote these programs into existence with regards to the Federal Reserve and the bond buying programs, they knew, they had an inkling, they're economists, they had an inkling that this sort of behavior of printing money and then buying bad loans to save corporations who've done essentially mismanagement, they knew that this would spread in the gap, that it would cause a huge divide between the wealthy and the poor. And a lot of what you're seeing spill out into the streets, and we stand in solidarity with George Floyd, but I am conflating what I describe as economic warfare and economic oppression that's happened in this country against primarily minorities, the young, and the poor. And they are kept in this bubble, this devious bubble of low income, lack of education, lack of investments in the public schools. Most wealthy American kids don't go, or excuse me, white American kids, they don't go to public schools anymore. Most of the kids where I live, they go to private schools. And they're doing mathematical and coding problems in the 3rd grade. I didn't do that, and I know sure as hell the brown kids that I was working with in North Valley, here in San Fernando Valley, as a grant writer, as a fundraiser for this school, they didn't have a laptop and a coding program to teach them the next wave of economic uplift. So the conversation that I want to start having is, how do we be aggressive without being violent? And my answer is economic warfare. They've conducted it against us, and I've had to bang at every door, just like the people in this room, for whatever you've earned, your peace in the world and your family's peace in the world. And it's just dehumanizing, and we're seeing this dehumanizing effort across every aspect of society now. When a man's knee is kept in somebody's throat for 8 minutes, the human psyche, I don't care how deluded you are, can't stop but say to himself, but by the grace of God, there go I. Somebody's choking me out, my son, but by the grace of God. And when you start seeing that, you know that this is a government, an administration that it's unhinged from humanity. And so, you know, I'm just so proud of young people. I'm 32, but it's 20-year-olds, it's teenagers that took to the streets, and it should really empower all of us to say, what conversation are we having with the kids? Is it all about the Gucci belts? Grisha brought it up, and she's right. We have been talking about ambition and success and profit over people, but it doesn't work out in the end. It pits us one against the other, and we're here talking about solidarity and peace, and how we can, I suppose, sort of consolidate or organize or deconflict this idea of, I need to be economic and make a living, but I also need to buck the system. So we should take heart from these kids who have nothing attached to the system, and they're throwing it all on the line. And some are millennials and they have a little bit more that's on the line, and yet they're going to their place of office and they're saying, I don't like what Facebook's doing. I think they're not doing enough. I think they're not saying enough. And they're right. These are people of consciousness, of conscience, that are growing, and it's uplifting all of us, you know. A high tide lifts all boats, and I come into a chat room like this, and I've never really given a virtual webinar like this, and I'm just so inspired by the locking of arms, even virtually, with people who have awakened to the fact that this government has been unhinged from humanity. The young people know that. Why are we so late to the party? Roland's talking about folks who've been doing this work for decades. And it has to do with educating our youth so that they have better outcomes, so that they're at the banks, so they're at the big tech firms, they're at the startups, they're out there pitching the venture capitalist firms. But that's really not happening. The majority of investment does go to white startup founders. The majority of the safety net that this country put in place during COVID will continue to go to corporations, as if we didn't stop believing in trickle-down economics in the 80s and 90s, as if the 2009 financial crisis and the impeding widening of the gap hasn't taught us enough. People need help. You need humanitarians in office. And so when I see the young people and if they're looting, if they're graffitiing, if they're breaking into cars, my response is, and with all due respect to my sister who I love, and she is right, we need peace. I don't want peace. I want aggression. I want conflict, because hiding conflict doesn't solve it. And my son is he's gonna have to fight it. So I'm in the fight, and we need to get to a place where we're talking to our kids about how to make a living, how to create a family, and to do so in a way that isn't harming to the rest of the world. And it's just not one person wins and takes all. It's a very unethical win-lose scenario that we're seeing play out in America. And I just I stand in solidarity with the people here saying, let's spread courage. Roland said something very interesting about fear. It's white America is living in fear, and they are. And it's time that potentially we raise their level of consciousness to that of courage. Face your own demons. White supremacy isn't the way of the future. Brown people are the way of the future. Globalism is a reality, and it's not going away. And people of other faiths and religions aren't our enemy. We may have been a nation founded on Christian principles, but we are not a nation blinded by Christian zealots and extremism, which is being peddled out of the Oval Office today. I was raised in the Catholic Church, proudly call myself a Christian, but this is Christian radicalism that's being spread across this country. And it's being done so to incite violence in the Midwest, in conservative places like my own alma mater, West Point. There's a cabal of West Pointers in this administration. The Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, is a West Point graduate. Secretary of Defense, Espers, is a West Point graduate. And these people are giving a full-throated endorsement of inhumanity. And I just don't get it, man. So this is gonna cause suffering to a lot of people, because you need to go up against, the powers that be. Jamel started off in a prayer, and he mentioned something that kind of lit a bulb in my head, which was, he mentioned the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna. And in that story, you find the tale of Prince Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. And Prince Arjuna was essentially having an existential crisis during warfare. He was a young prince, and he was being asked to go to war against his cousins and his relatives. He had to fight his own, so to speak. And he had this conundrum, and he begged to God, much like Job might have in our Christian faith. He begged to God for a solution. How do I find my way out of this? You've condemned me in a no-win situation. And Krishna, the god of Hinduism, essentially speaks to Arjuna and says, whether you're right or wrong, what position you find yourself in at this point in time, this is the destiny I've given you. You must do battle. You must meet conflict. There must be pain. And that may not be uplifting, but conflict is necessary. And so I ask that we speak to the youth, tell them we got their back, and it's going to take a lot of courage and a lot of time, as Roland said. When he said 100 years, it blew my mind. I'm terrified of that. This is a long haul. This started during the Civil War we're talking about. We were supposed to fight to get this scourge of slavery mentality, of inferiority amongst races. This should have been handled a long time ago, and it still exists. And so it's a spiritual problem, and one that we have to face with absolute courage, and conflict is necessary. So I intend on pressing anyone that would prefer to be comfortable. And I'm very glad that people in this room are using the word revolution. It's pretty scary, but the winds of change are upon us. And so, like Arjuna, you're just gonna have to do battle. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I'm glad you said what you said, but I want you to know, and everyone here to know, that we're not too far off. One of the pillars of Modern Muse is that we're here to disrupt our mindset, and to disrupt anything lying dormant in us that is holding us back from creating a better life for our kids, our family, and just ultimately affecting change in the world. So disrupt is a good word that we've been using. And I was doing some research last night, and I came across this quote by John F. Kennedy, and it says, life is, he has another one that's my favorite, which is, if not us, who? If not now, when? It's one of my favorite ones, but I found this one, and I found this to be very relevant to this conversation right now. It says, life is never easy. There is work to be done and obligations to be met. Obligations to truth, to justice, and to liberty. So we do have an obligation. And now we're going to, speaking of mindset, I'm going to turn this over to Julie so she can introduce our next guest, who is very well versed in this space. Thank you again, Stephen.
Yeah, Stephen, I wanted to add, thank you for bringing in the element of our youth. My two daughters are on this call and listening, and your words, as always, are impactful and powerful. So thank you so much. I am really honored to introduce both ZULAY and our friend and a mentor. His name is Peter Crone. He is known as the Mindset Architect. You will recognize him if you saw the documentary Heal on Netflix. We wanted to bring him on and ask him a few very important questions in regards to mindset right now, and hopefully get some tools of how we can manage stress and kind of move together collectively during this time. So Peter, are you on?
I am here, yeah.
Hey, beautiful. Hi. I have a very important question to ask you.
Okay.
I was going over your website, and there was a quote on there that really stood out from Marcel Proust, and it says, "The journey of true discovery lies not in finding new lands, but in looking through new eyes." Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, in your perspective, like, how do we look through new eyes right now in terms of like waking up from the societal patterns that have oppressed Black lives for so long?
Well, before I address the question, it's not lost on me that I'm here as a white man amongst an incredible group of very articulate, educated, impassioned, multicolored, multi-raced human beings. And it's beyond humbling and honoring that you invited me to join the conversation so that I could contribute in whatever way I can. And I've been listening from the beginning. There was some workers here, so I didn't want to be disturbing anyone, but I listened right from the beginning with Jamel, who I've had the pleasure of sort of direct messaging a little bit prior to this, and Angela and Laz, and obviously Roland and Stephen. And there's so much, and BRESHA, there's so much that I've learned from each of you. So I truly hope that I get to contribute something that does make a difference. And as Julie said, it's really speaking from more the mechanics of who we are as humans, and perhaps understand why we do the things we do. So there's so many things I could speak to. I just got so moved by Stephen because I can just feel his passion. And my dog was called Krishna. And it was a Belgian Tavern, and that breed is renowned for its beautiful, significant black face. It's one of their markings. And the reason I named him Krishna was precisely for the point that Stephen was speaking to, which is what he represented in terms of this world of possibility, but also karma or dharma, whatever way you want to say it. And as Angela said so beautifully, you know, when we were each in the womb of our own mothers, we were preparing for this in ways that perhaps we were oblivious to, but nonetheless, we're here because we're called to be in action. And it reminds me of the quote by Mother Teresa, who said, "I know God won't give me anything I can't handle. I just wish he wouldn't trust me so much." And, you know, these are scary times, and there's so much uncertainty, which is one of the things I speak to, sort of the recognition that life itself is uncertainty, that none of us know. But collectively, we get to forge, we get to create, we get to declare what is it that we're all committed to. And I think what's happening right now is, as painful as it is in the world of duality. There is this abhorrent, heinous, disgusting revelation of oppression that has been there like a societal cancer. And as Will Smith said, you know, it's not that racism's getting worse, it's getting filmed. And I thought it was such an eloquent quote, right? Because I'm oblivious to much of what's been going on. I'm humbled by how much I'm learning, even in the discourse that we've had today. I have done an inordinate amount of learning and research and education over the last few weeks. And it's humbling and it's eye-opening, but there is this recognition that this societal cancer that has been there is coming to the surface. And what I want to speak to today is the healing process, right? Which is why I know Julie and ZULAY asked me to come on here. And there's 3 distinct stages. Part of my work is in the science of Ayurveda, which is from India. It's very similar to Chinese medicine. And it's a beautiful science, 5,000 years old, way surpasses anything that the Western medicine system claims to do as it manages symptoms, right? It's not a healthcare system so much as a disease management system. And again, you know, it's incredible that Roland was speaking to, like, we've got to make the distinction between from the streets to the suites, and also how, you know, Laz, I didn't understand, but I didn't know about the police brutality bonds, right? And how Wall Street benefits from suffering. And if you look at another system of healthcare, pharmaceutical companies benefit from people being sick. They don't celebrate when their drug sales drop every month, right? Otherwise, that would be a commitment to health. So if we look at all of these systems that are in place, they're actually the antithesis of what they proclaim to stand for. And I think that's the thing that gets my goat. That's the thing that gets me pissed off, is that, you know, we're giving billions and billions of dollars to pharmaceutical companies right now to, you know, create some vaccine for with all due respect, to a virus that affects so few people at the end of the day. And how could that money be redistributed in a way that truly makes an impact, right? So that's where I feel much of the real looting is going on, is in these suites that Roland spoke to. So I love that everybody's aware of what's going on, and what I hope to inspire and at least educate is how can we take action. So the healing process, as I was saying, especially through the eyes of Ayurveda, there are 3 distinct stages. And it's so beautiful because it's so simple, and I hope we can all, and I hope, you know, please take it, use it within your own communities. But the first stage is you've got to identify, as ZULAY said at the beginning, the root cause. The second stage is we've got to balance the effects of the previous root cause, right? So if you follow that, so there's a root cause, then we have to balance whatever the effects of over time of whatever that previous root cause was. And then the third phase is you've got to create a new paradigm for existence. So everybody who's spoken to this today, it's been so beautiful, because what is the root cause? The root cause really is pure ignorance. It may seem like a very trite or crass example, but if you put 2 cars next to each other, identical make, identical model, identical year, literally in every regard, it is precisely the same car. But one is colored black and one is colored white. Anybody with an ounce of intelligence knows it's precisely the same car. There's no argument. And so it is pure ignorance. And by ignorance, I don't mean that as a judgment. I mean it, the lack of knowing, the lack of understanding, the lack of education, that there is still the distinction that somebody of color, somebody of minority, even, you know, look, Me Too movement, this wasn't that long ago where we recognized misogyny, you know, alongside racism. It's the same energy of in some way bringing a belittled perception to somebody that justifies harm. And so that's the root cause. If we're going to transcend this and create a new paradigm, which I'm so like hopeful for the fact that we got so many beautiful people on this call and people that I'm working with behind the scenes in my own community, my own tribe, educating people to create a new paradigm, we can only do it if we're aware of what is the current root cause. I think we spend a lot of time in the healing, right? That's like trimming the weeds and the yard looks nice, but you haven't actually dealt with something. And so similar to Stephen's point about its education, and especially with our children, I've been encouraged by so many of these videos that young white girls and boys are putting up where they're having discourse, even arguments with their own parents, trying to educate their parents about racism. And you can hear in the background, as disgusting as it is to hear, the justification of a parent as to why, no, maybe he deserved it, or no, you don't understand. Most of them are like, it's actually, it makes me cringe to hear some of these conversations, but it's hopeful to hear that the white children, the kids are actually recognizing the ignorance of their own parents' narratives. So, and that's really what I wanted to speak to, is this consensus reality that is part of the subconscious, and similar to the way that Roland so beautifully, like the cascade that he just articulated from the world to America, to the States, to the cities, to the neighborhoods. I mean, it's so beautiful the way he articulated, and I do it in a similar way when I help my athletes, my executives, my entertainers, my stay-at-home parents, it doesn't matter, is we've got to recognize what we're looking at are the results right now. We're looking at the abhorrent, disgusting results, but why? Because of the previous actions, the behaviors. But why are the actions and behaviors the way they are? Because of the current beliefs and emotions. And that's not enough. We have to go, okay, but why do people believe and emote and feel what they believe and feel? Because of the subconscious narratives that have been inherited from generation to generation to generation, such that it's become consensus reality. It's just the way it is. But it's not. It's programming. I like to use analogies and metaphors. If any one of us open up our laptop and we go to a very popular program, say iTunes, we don't get upset when we can't edit photos in iTunes. It would make no sense. We understand that iTunes is programmed in a way such that we can buy, listen to, look at music. We understand that's the way we programmed it. So likewise, in the current society that we live in, there is such an insidious, deep-rooted programming, no different to any other software on a computer, that is creating the beliefs that we are currently up against with the actions that are leading to these atrocities. And it's one thing to ask people to change behaviors, and that will last for a minute. But this is to Roland's point again, we've seen that show. It's come and gone every time. It's no different than if I work with someone who's trying to lose weight. You know, you look at The Biggest Loser, the producers of the NBC show, they asked me to come in and say, why do 90% of our contestants end up back putting on weight? I'm like, well, because all you did was change behavior. You didn't change the deep-seated narrative of that person's lack of inadequacy, their feeling of insecurity, their feeling of scarcity, their worthlessness. And so, again, I get very passionate about this, because if we don't get down to the deep-seated narratives that people have about humanity as a whole, then we can do all the protesting we want. And it's super, super inspiring to be involved in that, to see people doing that. And I hope it truly does influence change, but we have to educate people on the pure ignorance that they have, that there is any sense of difference between any of us. You know, it's easy to say, okay, like this current argument of all lives matter versus Black Lives Matter. And I've had to educate so many of my friends recently. I said, look, in those 3 stages I gave you, remove the root cause, 2, balance and heal the effects of the previous root cause, and then 3, create a new paradigm. Balancing the effects of the previous root cause. The root cause is this hideous oppression. The balancing is Black Lives Matter. That is the balancing right now. We don't get to all lives matter until we create a new paradigm. Do you understand? And when I break it down, they seem to get that. It's like, you know, I've seen so many beautiful metaphors, like you're in a nice neighborhood. Yes, all houses matter, but these 2 houses are burning down right now. So, so in terms of those 3 cascades, I hope people can understand that we've got to recognize the deep-seated narratives that are creating the thoughts and beliefs that then lead to the atrocious behaviors. Then right now what we're doing is, you know, the donating, the redistribution of funds, the the rewriting of laws and policies. That is the healing that's currently happening. Conversations like this, and then eventually the bigger picture. Yes, we want to get to a world of kindness, humanity. You know, like DUVAL said, like our superpower is ultimately love. The same that Jamel said. You know, love versus fear. Fear is currently running the way that we all exist. It's impacting all of us, and the reason it is because it's a tough subject to talk about, but really what's happening here is death, you know, and literally and figuratively, right? Because if we look at what happened, which I feel is like inspirational for humanity, the SpaceX, the launch of the shuttle, right? The physics of that process, there is the most amount of intensity, which speaks to Stephen's point, as you get closer to the end of the orbit, right? As that shuttle gets closest to leaving the Earth's orbit, there is the most amount of friction. Now, what does that represent in the times that we're currently in? We're getting close to the edge of an orbit that has been so oppressive for so long, and there is now the most amount of friction. And in order to break through, to create this new space, this new paradigm, we have to continue to forge forward. It takes the most amount of rocket fuel, which is all of our efforts to contribute, to educate, to learn, to get out on the streets, to make difference, to, as Roland said, to go from one house, one change maker, through the streets, to the blocks, to the neighborhoods, to the cities. We need the most amount of effort to get beyond the orbit of oppression and such that we can enter ultimately the space of, you know, liberty and justice for all, which I find, you know, it's beautiful words, but it's blank, right? It's empty, it's meaningless. Just like the land of the free and the home of the brave. You know, it's one thing for us all to stand up and sing that, but it's not actually what's happening. And one of the things I teach people is integrity. You've got to have your actions and your words align if you're going to be powerful and impactful in life. And right now, you know, we are a nation of pretentious people. And what I mean by that is there's pretense. We lie. We pretend things are okay and they're not. They're just not. And I'm so happy that so much of this is coming to the surface so that we can bring awareness, such that we can impact change, and that eventually together we can create a new paradigm. And the last note on that new paradigm, I recently heard about Wilmont Collins. I don't know if you've heard the new mayor of Helena in Montana, first African-American mayor who's been elected. That to me is a sign of, you know, the new paradigm. Not just he's African-American, because he's a decent human being who comes from kindness, love, and equality. So there are glimpses. We're cracking the dam. I hope the way that I've delineated the healing process is impactful for people, and we can implement that to get to the deep narratives we're having in our homes, the narratives we're having with friends, the narratives we're having with children, so that we can get rid of the most fundamental lie that people have been stuck in, that there is some sense of inequality inherent in life, and there just isn't. There just isn't. It's a lie. Last example I'll give you, and then I'll shut up. You know, it was only a couple of thousand years ago that people thought the world was flat, right? And that was a narrative of the subconscious. And if you thought the world was flat, because you got the evidence, right? The evidence is, look out at the horizon, I can see it's flat. Within that construct, people have to generate a fear. And that fear is, I don't want to fall off the edge, right? It's totally logical, but it only exists within the lie that the world is flat. Now, what do we have in current times? The lie is that there's, you know, African Americans are less than, they're criminal, whatever. There's a whole slew of bullshit lies. When you live within that, you have to generate a fear of oppression. You just have to. We found out that the world wasn't flat. Shocking, right? And so now the fear dissipates. It's a dissolution process. Not only do I not want to be part of the problem, I want to be part of the dissolution, not the solution. The solution is the antidote to, and it's a reaction of, a previous problem. We have to recognize it's a dissolution, it's a death of the lie that we've all been living in, that there's a difference between any of us. Now, it's easy to say, but until we educate people to get that, as simple as the world is not fucking flat, it's not. You're not going to argue for that. It has to be that categorically clear until such time that we have different thoughts, different feelings, different actions, and different results. And until we get to that root, the ignorance of thinking that there is a difference between any of us, that any life is somehow less than, then, you know, we've got work to do. I wrote one last thing. I wrote this article called Choose Love, which is very poetic, and it might seem esoteric, and like, you know, Jamel spoke to, and even like DUVAL, like that's our superpower. Choosing love is our nature. That's who we are. And I said, if you're not quite ready to choose love, at least stop harm. And that is a nice bridge to, if you can't jump to love, fine, I get it. But stop the fucking insanity of hurting people, regardless of gender, ethnicity, age. That at least is a step in the right direction. I hope that helps. I'm pretty passionate about this damn thing, but you know.
Peter, that was
incredible.
That was just beautiful and brilliant. And oh, I don't know, are we both talking? Peter, thank you so much for your passion, for your time, for your expertise, for your just for the beautiful way, all the beautiful analogies that just kind of really bring everything back home for us. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. You have been such a light on this call, because it's beautiful to hear from, like you said, a white man and your perspective. And it's been amazing. We've been honored and blessed to have you. So thank you again. And our last speaker is Natalia Ochoa. Natalia is the vice president of the NOSOTROS organization, which is a nonprofit for Latino X actors. She's also an intuitive coach and actress. And she's going to give us a little collective reading and then lead us through a moment of silence to honor Mr. George Floyd. So take it away, Natalia.
Hi, everyone. I'm so honored, and thank you so much, Zulay and Julie, for having me in this an amazing event. And I want to thank and acknowledge every single one of you who showed up on this Sunday for this, because I think it's so important that we all come together to share what's in the depths of our heart, and to come together collectively to understand all of the different layers of what's going on during this time, because it can be extremely confusing. And sometimes we don't know, where to turn or what to feel. And just like Peter spoke about and others, it is definitely about returning to love, because at the end of the day, when we take action based on love, that is the best that we can do for everyone involved. So what I'm going to do before we go into the moment of silence is that I'm just going to have everyone close their eyes, and I'm just going to take you through a little bit of a little meditation to get connected to love. So if everyone can close their eyes and be comfortable, and get comfortable in a seat or laying down or whatever feels best for you. And I want you to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. I want all of the words, all of the energy, all of what you've listened to today to really, really sink in. And I want you to place your hand on your heart, and I want you to feel your heartbeat. And I want you to get connected to how you are feeling right now, to how you have been feeling for this past week, for the past month, since the year started. And to be able to allow and understand that whatever is coming up for you is correct. And it's okay. And that feeling of anxiety, pain, and anger, and sorrow, allow it to really come to the surface. Welcome it and embrace it, because it is a part of us. And pain and sorrow is, and this void, this feeling of darkness that we go through during these deep times, is a really wonderful opportunity for your heart to crack open and for you to really feel the depth of your soul and of what is your true calling on this planet. And now I want you to envision a bud of a flower on the top of your head. And I want you to imagine it blooming open. And now I want you to imagine a white light, golden white light coming from above. And I want you to connect with whatever you believe with God, Source, whatever that is for you. And allow that golden white light to fill every inch of your being. Allow it to go through your heart, to go down to your feet, to go through your hands, and allow it to expand outside of yourself and create this golden white bubble of light around you. Understand that every single person that has come forth in this call is a leader. And we all collectively came together because we are here to change the world. Our soul chose to be here during this time to make a change, to make an impact. And all of the information that you received during this call and that you have been receiving intuitively and in your gut and in your heart from the beginning of when this all started is a motivation for you to go down that path and for you to speak your truth and for you to take action from this enlightened heart warming space. I want you all to welcome in love and say, I release all of these negative emotions that I've been feeling inside. And I welcome in love. From this state, you can send positivity and you can send blessings to every single person that has been suffering during this time. To George Floyd's family, to the passing of George Floyd for his transition, and for the suffering that you have been feeling yourself. And now I want you to just really feel this light inside of you emanate outwards and spread it all across the world so everyone can receive a bit of your light. Now we're going to be in silence to honor George Floyd and his passing for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And during this time, breathe deeply and send love to every single person that comes to your mind. I will let you know when that moment has passed. It starts now. And that's the time. I pray for peace. I pray for unity. And I pray for transformation so we can all live an enlightened and blessed life. Thank you so much, Zulay and Julie, for bringing this together and for making sure that we all come together to spread peace and love and be educated on what are the correct next steps to take.
Thank you so much, Natalia. That was really beautiful. To feel the heaviness of those 8 minutes and 46 seconds is really powerful. And I don't think I have much else to say, except I want to echo what my brother said. We must do battle. We must learn our strengths, and we must use them bravely. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. And now Julie, my partner in Modern Muse, is going to introduce our last act. I love you guys. Amen.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you to everyone who spoke for sharing your words and your strong voices and your inspiration. And there is a lot of work to do, but I know we can do this together. And with that, our closing performer is a bright light. Her name is Butterscotch. She is the first ever female world beatboxing champion. And she sings so beautifully, as you are about to see, about her struggles, you know, her love life, her struggles with depression, as well as what it is like to be a biracial queer woman of color. She is powerful. We're gonna let her take us through the end. And after that, you guys have a beautiful day. We're continuing to be taking donations that go directly to Black Lives Matter throughout the week. So you can just go on modernmuse.com if you wanna contribute more. But you being here is a contribution enough. Thank you. Have the most beautiful day. And Butterscotch, you're up.
Yeah, da, 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 da. So if everyone can put on headphones if they have them, it'll be experience. And then if someone could mute, because I hear an echo. There we go. Perfect. All right.
So important that we come together, no matter your background. We gotta feel the love. I'm gonna tell you a little story about my life. Yeah. I didn't grow up white, didn't grow up black, didn't grow up in a healthy habitat. Didn't know what I was, didn't know what I wanted to be. All I knew is that I couldn't see. Stevie made me wonder, was it better to be blind? Would that be easier to find? The inner light for me to shine, to see the sign was too high to see that ribbon in the sky. Too much fight in the home, that the thoughts in the dome. Suicide dreams that wake me alone. Looking for a different world, take me home somewhere unknown and on my own. With that old stress, pain in my chest, getting hard to breathe. Can't see what I see. I'm trapped in a system that hates what is different. Anyone with a vision, they don't try to listen, listen, listen. Yeah, da, 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 da. Yeah, da, 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 yeah. I'm trying to live, can't you see what you hate does to me? I'm trying to live, I'm trying to live, let me be free. It's none of your business if I slept with a woman or a man. Frankly, I don't give a damn what you think. I'm a freak, what I do in the sheets doesn't concern you. I don't understand why you care so much. What do you people stare so much? Why you point and glare so much? Like you're the one to judge and you're messed up like you can't get enough. Pushing people down like you wear a crown. The king is dead, my time is now. I'm gonna walk around like I own this shit. Never back down cause I'm making hits. Don't believe in violence, but I won't turn the cheek if it makes me weak. Cause the hate me inflict makes me weep for my brothers and sisters who lost their lives, not bearing the deed. Yeah, da 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 da. Yeah, da 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 da. I'm trying to live, can't you see what you hate does to me? I'm trying to live, I'm trying to live, let me be free. I'm trying to live, can't you see what you hate it does to me? I'm trying to live, I'm trying to live, let me be free. Whether you're white, black, yellow, red, green, or turquoise, Mohawk, Navajo, Cherokee, Iroquois, we all from the same tribe, written in the same sky, all gonna live, we all gonna die, we go back on the earth, begin a new birth, karma decides your new worth, will you be a butterfly, will you be dirt, serve me the time for those you hurt, step on me and I'll step on you for all the things you put me through, tired of hiding, tired of fighting, can't understand my life is frightening, never gonna see what you want me to be, a grain of salt, and I don't take what you say seriously, so stop by here and let me be free. Free. I'm trying to live, can't you see what you hate does to me? I'm trying to live, I'm trying to live, let me be free. I'm trying to live, can't you see what you hate it does to me? I'm trying to live, I'm trying to live, let me be free. I'm trying to live, can't you see what you hate does to me? I'm trying to live, I'm trying to live, let me be free. Just let me be free. Thank you.